Today's essential question for lesson 7.4 is how can you classify quadrilaterals? Go ahead and write that down. So here we have a quadrilateral. The word quad refers to the number 4. So a quadrilateral is anything that has 4 sides. If you take a look at this first example here, this shape has 1, 2, 3, 4 sides. Now within this category of quadrilaterals, there are other subcategories. So you can have something that's a trapezoid, a parallelogram, or a kite. Let's take a look at what the trapezoid looks like. A trapezoid is a quadrilateral with exactly one pair of parallel sides. If you look at these two little red arrows here, they indicate that the top line and the bottom line are parallel, meaning they will never intersect. So trapezoid looks something like this. A parallelogram has a bunch of different markings on here that we'll talk about in a bit. It's a quadrilateral with opposite sides that are parallel and congruent. So again, the arrows here indicate that the top line and the bottom line are parallel, and the little hash marks here mean that the lines are congruent. The same thing with the lines on the sides. So the little arrows here, one arrow here, indicates that they are parallel. One hash mark here, one hash mark here indicates that they are congruent. So a parallelogram will look something like this. A kite. Well, if you think about just what a kite looks like in the sky, kind of looks something like this, right? Again, it's a quadrilateral. It has 4 sides, but it's a quadrilateral with 2 pairs of congruent adjacent sides and opposite sides that are not congruent. So 2 pairs of congruent adjacent sides. That means adjacent sides are sides that are next to each other, right? So these sides are adjacent. The lines here indicate that they are congruent, or exactly the same. Again, here we go. These 2 lines are adjacent. The 2 hash marks here indicate that they are congruent. So this means this quadrilateral is a kite. Now within these subcategories, there are 2 different kinds of parallelograms. You could have a rectangle or a rhombus. Those are 2 kinds of parallelograms. A rectangle is a parallelogram with 4 right angles, which most of you are familiar with. So again, the little red squares indicate 90-degree or right angles. The hash marks indicate that they are parallel. Okay, another kind of parallelogram would be a rhombus. This is a parallelogram with 4 congruent sides. So it would look something like this. These hash marks all indicate that they are congruent. Now, a square is a type of rectangle, and it is also a type of rhombus, so it's kind of unique. You know what a square looks like. It's a parallelogram with 4 congruent sides and 4 right angles. So all 4 sides are the same in length, and they also have 4 right angles. That's what makes a square. The first example is asking you to classify the quadrilaterals. So, go ahead and pause the video and take a minute to name shape A and shape B. Well, hopefully for shape A, you saw that there's 4 right angles and all sides are exactly the same. So that would make shape A a square. Okay, and for shape B, you would see that these 2 adjacent sides are congruent, and these 2 adjacent sides are also congruent, and we saw earlier that makes the shape of a kite. Let's pause the video and go ahead and try these as well. Classify the quadrilateral. Now, when you're classifying these quadrilaterals, you want to be as specific as possible. So if you go back to the key idea, number 1 looks very close to a rhombus. If you said parallelogram, you're technically correct, but the more specific description would be a rhombus. So if you wrote rhombus, Good job. Number 2 has two sides that are parallel, and then the other sides are congruent, but they're not necessarily parallel. That should be a trapezoid. And then number 3 should be a rectangle. Okay? You're welcome to write these in your connections if they are not printed in your notes. Let's take a look at our second key idea. Here we have the sum of the angle measures of a quadrilateral. This is really important. In words, it says the sum of the angle measures of a quadrilateral is 360 degrees. In algebra, this means w plus x plus y plus z equals 360. So when you add all these angle measurements together, they're always going to add to 360 degrees. Do you remember how many degrees are in a triangle? If you said 180, you are correct. Good job. You remember that from the last lesson. Let's look at example 2. Finding an angle measure of a quadrilateral. Find the value of x. Well, let's set up a formula. We know these 4 angles are going to add up to 360 degrees, so let's go ahead and write our formula out. 115 plus 70 plus 75 plus x equals 360 degrees. Now we're going to go ahead and simplify. So if we add up all the numbers, 115 plus 70 plus 75, you should get 260. So 260 plus x is now going to equal 360 degrees. We want to get x alone, so we have to get rid of the 260 by subtracting it. Whatever you do to one side, you must do to the other. So we're going to go ahead and subtract 260 from the other side as well. And that's going to leave you with x equals 100. Okay? So go ahead and circle your answer. So x equals 100 degrees. That's going to be your answer here. And don't forget to put the little degree bubble. Oops, right there. Okay? Now, go ahead and pause the video and try these 2 examples on your own. Find the value of x. So for number 4, again, you should set up an equation, 100 plus 80 plus 100 plus x equals 360. We're going to combine all our numbers together. Whoops, I forgot my x here. And figure out what that comes out to. So 100 plus 100 plus 80 is going to give you 280 plus x. Don't forget to bring that down. Bring down your equal sign, line everything up. Equals 360. Again, we want to get x alone, so we're going to subtract 280 on both sides. And then we're left with x equals, go ahead and figure out what 360 minus 280 is. And you should get 80 degrees. And you can make sure that you write your degree bubble. So circle your answer. Write your degree symbol. Circle your answer. Okay, we're also going to do the same thing for number 5. Note that number 5 has a little square here instead of a number, but we know that square means 90 degrees. So you can assume that that's going to be 90 degrees. So 90 plus 81 plus 124 plus x equals 360 degrees. Okay, go ahead and add your numbers together. So when you do 90 plus 81 plus 124. That's going to give you 295 plus x equals 360 degrees. Now we want to get x alone, so we're going to subtract 295 on both sides. Okay, that's going to leave x alone and give us 360 minus 295. Go ahead and figure that out. It's going to give you 65 degrees. Okay, so write your degree bubble. And, of course, don't forget to circle your answer. Number 3 wants you to construct a quadrilateral. Draw a parallelogram with a 60-degree angle and a 120-degree angle. Okay, so first off, we are going to need our protractor. Go ahead and grab one if you don't have one. And a straight edge, which you could just use the bottom of your protractor. Okay, so the first thing I want to do when drawing any angle is I want to draw a straight line. Okay, so I need a straight line. One of my angles is going to be 60 degrees. One of them is going to be 120. So I'm going to just go ahead and choose to line up my protractor at the end of this line here. And I'm going to mark 60 degrees. That's just the one I want to choose. So here's 60 degrees. And then I can go ahead and connect my lines together. So let me get a straight line, and I'm going to connect my line. Okay, I happen to know that a parallelogram needs 2 pairs of parallel lines. So this side is going to have to look like this. So that's going to be my other 60-degree angle. So I'm going to go ahead and mark 60 degrees again, which is right up here. And I'm going to get a straight line and connect them together. So you would use your straight edge. Okay, then I know that I also need a 120-degree line. So you can turn your paper to measure 120 degrees. Okay. Now this is going to be the end here. I'm going to rotate this here. And I need 120 degrees. So if I'm starting with 0 here, 10, 20, 30, all the way to 120, that is going to be about here. You see that? So I'm going to mark a line here at 120 degrees. Plus I know that looks about right because I know it's going to make a parallelogram if I put my dot there. Okay, so I'm going to move my protractor. I'm going to grab a straight line and connect them. And that's my parallelogram. So if I were to label my angle measurements, I know this one's a small one, plus I measured it. This one's my 60 degree. Okay, this one's also 60 degrees. This one is 120 degrees, because I measured it. And this would be 120 degrees. And that's my parallelogram with a 60-degree angle and a 120-degree angle.